The most dangerous moment of your day may not be when you're walking outside, or even when you're stressed at work. For many people after 60, it happens quietly, right after waking up. The body, while you sleep, enters a slower rhythm. Blood pressure drops, heart rate settles, and everything feels calm. But the moment you wake up, something dramatic happens inside you. Stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline rise sharply. Blood vessels tighten. Blood pressure surges. For a healthy young body, this shift is manageable. But after 60, especially if the heart or arteries are already weakened, this sudden morning spike can become a hidden trigger for disaster. Cardiologists have observed a pattern for decades. Heart attacks are more common in the early morning hours. Not because morning itself is dangerous, but because of what people do immediately after waking up. Small habits, repeated daily, silently add strain on an already sensitive cardiovascular system. One of the most overlooked risks is how abruptly many people get out of bed. A sudden jump from lying down to standing forces the heart to adjust instantly. Blood pools in the lower body, and the heart must pump harder to stabilize circulation. If arteries are stiff or narrowed, this sudden demand can become overwhelming. Even mild dehydration plays a role. After 6 to 8 hours of sleep, the body wakes up slightly dehydrated. Blood becomes thicker, circulation slows, and the heart must work harder to push it through narrowed pathways. It sounds simple, almost harmless, but in vulnerable individuals, this combination of thickened blood and morning pressure surge can set the stage for a cardiac event. And yet, most people begin their day as if nothing is happening inside their body. They stretch quickly, rush to stand, and immediately expose their cardiovascular system to a sudden workload it may not be ready for. The danger is not loud. It doesn't announce itself. It builds silently in those first few minutes after waking, when the heart is trying to find its rhythm again in a body that is suddenly asking too much, too fast. After the first shock of waking, the next few habits often make things worse without people realizing it. One of the most common morning choices is reaching for strong tea or coffee on an empty stomach. Caffeine itself is not the enemy, but in the early morning window, it adds fuel to an already activated stress system. It can push heart rate higher and tighten blood vessels further. For someone over 60 with existing artery stiffness or blood pressure issues, this extra stimulation can create unnecessary strain at exactly the wrong time. Then there is the habit of skipping water. Many people drink tea first and delay hydration. But after hours without fluids, the blood remains thicker than usual. The heart must push harder to maintain circulation, especially in the brain and coronary arteries. This is one of those silent burdens the body carries without obvious warning signs, until it suddenly cannot. Another overlooked trigger is rushing breakfast or eating very heavy, oily meals early in the morning. After waking, the digestive system is restarting, and heavy food demands increased blood flow to the stomach. That means the heart is forced to divide its workload between digestion and circulation. In vulnerable individuals, this competition for blood supply can become risky. Even something as ordinary as morning frustration or emotional stress plays a role. Watching upsetting news, worrying about responsibilities, or reacting emotionally early in the day activates the sympathetic nervous system, the same system responsible for fight or flight. This again raises blood pressure and heart workload before the body has fully stabilized from sleep. And then there is physical strain that seems harmless, sudden bending, lifting, or even rushing to the bathroom. These quick exertions spike internal pressure. In stiff arteries, that pressure doesn't distribute smoothly. It concentrates where the vessels are weakest. None of these habits feel dangerous on their own. That is what makes them so deceptive. They don't act like emergencies, they act like routines. But when combined in the fragile morning window, they quietly stack pressure on the heart, minute by minute, until the system is pushed closer to its limit. What makes morning heart strain so dangerous is not a single action, but a chain of small ones happening back to back. The body wakes up, blood pressure rises naturally, hydration is low, and the cardiovascular system is adjusting to full activity again. In that narrow window, even ordinary habits can tilt the balance in a direction the heart may struggle to handle. The heart after 60 is not weak by default, but it often works under different conditions: stiffer arteries, slower recovery from stress spikes, and reduced flexibility in blood flow regulation. These changes are usually gradual and silent, which is why many people don't feel them directly. But internally, the system becomes less forgiving of sudden changes. It depends more on smooth transitions and less on abrupt demands. That is why mornings matter so much. They represent the first major transition of the day. A calm morning rhythm becomes essential. The body needs time to synchronize after sleep. First, breathing stabilizes and oxygen levels normalize. Then, blood vessels adjust from the resting state. After that, circulation fully adapts to upright posture and activity. Only once this sequence is complete does the heart operate at full efficiency again. When people rush through this natural process, jumping out of bed, immediately drinking stimulants, or engaging in physical or emotional stress, the heart is forced to compensate repeatedly before it is fully ready. That compensation is where strain builds. Cardiologists often emphasize something simple but powerful: the first 20 to 30 minutes after waking are not the time to rush life into motion. During sleep, the body is in a repair and recovery mode. Waking up does not instantly switch everything back to peak performance. Instead, the system ramps up. Heart rate increases, blood pressure rises, and hormones shift to prepare the body for activity. If this ramp-up phase is disrupted, the cardiovascular system can experience unnecessary pressure spikes. Over time, repeated spikes create vulnerability in people who already have narrowed arteries or underlying heart disease. One of the most important but overlooked issues is posture transition. Moving from lying down to standing too quickly can cause sudden changes in blood distribution. This forces the heart to respond instantly to maintain stable circulation to the brain and vital organs. In healthy younger individuals, this adjustment happens smoothly. But in older adults, especially those with hypertension or atherosclerosis, the adjustment may be less efficient, increasing the workload on the heart at a critical moment. Hydration also plays a surprisingly important role. After several hours of sleep, the body is naturally in a mild state of fluid deficit. Blood becomes slightly more concentrated, which can increase resistance in circulation. The heart must work harder to push blood through vessels that are already less elastic with age. A simple glass of water upon waking can support smoother flow and reduce this early strain before caffeine or food is introduced. Even emotional tone in the morning matters more than most people realize. Sudden stress, whether from news, arguments, worry, or mental pressure, activates the sympathetic nervous system. This system is responsible for fight or flight responses, increasing heart rate and blood pressure almost instantly. If this happens before the cardiovascular system has fully stabilized from sleep, it adds another layer of stress at the worst possible time. Physical strain can also quietly contribute. Activities like rushing to the bathroom, lifting heavy objects, or bending quickly may seem harmless, but they create sudden internal pressure shifts. When arteries are stiff, these pressure changes are not absorbed smoothly, forcing the heart to work harder to maintain balance. None of these habits feel alarming in isolation. That is what makes them dangerous. They are ordinary, familiar parts of a morning routine. But when they occur together in the same short window, they create a cumulative load on the heart that is easy to underestimate. Because in many cases, a heart event is not a sudden, unexplained accident. It is the result of repeated strain patterns, especially in the morning hours, when the body is still transitioning from rest to activity and the heart is working hardest to stabilize everything at once. If this message made you pause and think about your own morning routine, that awareness itself is valuable. Small timing changes, small adjustments, can protect a system that works silently every second of your life. Like this if you want more real health science explained in a simple, human way. Comment your thoughts below. Your experience or insight might help someone else recognize a risk they've been ignoring for years.